Suddenly, Su Jingxing's pupils constricted as he looked at the few sparkling and clear stones scattered on the mountain not far away. The shape, characteristics, or aura of the stones were exceptionally familiar. Heavenly Tao crystals. There are heavenly Tao crystals here. Stunned, Su Jingxing's divine consciousness manifestation slowly floated over. When he got closer, he realized that there were more than a few heavenly Tao crystals. Instead, there were dozens of them scattered all over the ground. Some of them had sunk into the ground, while others had fallen further away. The unique aura of the heavenly Tao crystals stimulated one's soul so much that one could not help but squat down to pick them up. The same went for Su Jingxing, and he reached out to pick up the free heavenly Tao crystals. Except, a second before his finger touched a heavenly Tao crystal, he suddenly paused and smiled. Interesting. Su Jingxing slowly got up and controlled his spiritual martial arts divine consciousness manifestation to look around. He chuckled and said, "I admit that the heavenly Tao crystals you put in are the same as the real deal, but aren't there too many of them? Sometimes, having too many of one item isn't a good thing. Instead, it will expose your loopholes." Who? The cold wind blew, and the surroundings were silent. Su Jingxing didn't mind. He only raised his foot and crushed the heavenly Tao crystal with a stomp. Bang! Gray-white mist burst forth, and all the heavenly Tao crystals turned into mist and disappeared. The scene in his vision also changed. Su Jingxing's spiritual martial arts divine consciousness manifestation seemed to have disappeared from the spot and appeared again beside a lake. In the lake, more than 10 beautiful women with perfect figures and flawless faces were playing in the water. They were either aloof, cute, sexy, charming, enchanting, or ethereal. The translucent gauze clothes on them revealed clear curves and exuded endless temptation. They stimulate a man's deepest desires to the extreme. These beauties are not bad. Su Jingxing stood on the shore and sized up the beauties in the lake with interest. "Come on, come down and play with us." The beauties in the water also waved at Su Jingxing. They were either aloof, pleading, or pitiful. Su Jingxing didn't move and continued to watch appreciatively. They're very real, but too fake when put together. How can women, especially beautiful women, appear in groups and be so friendly? As soon as he said this, the surrounding images suddenly froze. The next moment, Su Jingxing's spiritual martial arts divine consciousness manifestation disappeared into thin air and appeared on a mountain. This mountain was filled with divine weapons, sabers, swords, spears, halberds, axes, staffs, whips, locks. All kinds of divine weapons emitted different auras, stirring up ripples in the air. Not bad, not bad. The divine weapons are amazing. They're all real. Su Jingxing's divine consciousness manifestation praised, but he had no intention of touching them. "How about leaving me one as a gift when I leave?" The space froze. In the next moment, the scene changed again. It was a dark cave, and strange sounds were coming from all around. Su Jingxing's spiritual martial arts divine consciousness manifestation scanned with its vision, and saw the giant bat monsters he had seen before hanging upside down on the roof of the cave. Moreover, they had opened their eyes and were staring fixedly at Su Jingxing. "You sent me to a monster's lair." Instead of being afraid, Su Jingxing was delighted. "Good, that's great. I was just feeling that I didn't get enough of killing previously. Now, I can kill to my heart's content." Swish. 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 Sword energy spiraled. Soul power condensed into sword energy that charged towards the ceiling. TSS. TSS. The giant bat monsters hanging from the ceiling shrieked and released sound waves that pounced at Su Jingxing. Chi. 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 Bang. 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 The sound of air breaking accompanied by an explosion instantly sounded in the dark cave. The bats that were attacking were strange. Before they could touch Su Jingxing's divine consciousness manifestation, they were minced and exploded. However, there was no extraction notification as he expected. Fake. No, they are also real, but not entirely real. Half real and half fake. If Su Jingxing's divine consciousness manifestation was attacked, it would also be injured on the soul level. However, this wound would not be fatal. It would only knock him out, drive him crazy, cause him pain, or make him uncomfortable. To put it bluntly, it was just a catalyst for the demonic mirror to take the opportunity to invade Su Jingxing's divine consciousness manifestation. The same went for the heavenly Tao crystals, beauties, and divine weapons. Su Jingxing's spiritual martial arts divine consciousness was too powerful. Instead of being invaded immediately, he entered the demonic mirror's world and killed more than 10 real bat monsters. This restrained the demonic mirror. It could not directly attack Su Jingxing and could only do so from the side. However, Su Jingxing wasn't fooled. The demonic mirror could only go crazy. For example, the giant bat monster's attack was like a circus show. Without waiting for Su Jingxing's spiritual martial arts divine consciousness manifestation to continue, the space in front of him changed again. He arrived at the mouth of a volcano with thick smoke billowing. The sky and ground were filled with a frightening suppression that could end the world. Boom! The volcano shook, and the magma at the bottom surged. Large masses of mist swarmed up, about to erupt. Buzz! Su Jingxing slapped down with his palm. His spiritual martial arts divine consciousness manifestation executed the firmament nirvana palm. The giant palm imprint carried the power of destruction as it suppressed the volcanic crater from top to bottom. Boom! There was an earth-shattering bang. The swaying volcanoes, the surging magma, and the billowing smoke were all reduced to ashes under the giant palm imprint. The dust that was expected did not appear. Instead, the entire space was broken, revealing a huge hole. Below the cave was a lush and boundless forest. They were connected in sheets and layers as if they were endless. The end could not be seen. However, at the edge of the broken space, a few pieces did not dissipate immediately. Instead, they emitted waves of fluctuations that lingered around. Su Jingxing's spiritual martial arts divine consciousness manifestation took this in. With a thought, his soul power swept up a few pieces and pulled them over before examining them carefully. Before long, he sensed intense spatial fluctuations that contained the power to cater to the void. Tao sentiment. Spatial Tao sentiment. Su Jingxing was surprised. These fragments actually contained spatial Tao sentiment. Although there was only a small amount, it did exist. Wouldn't that mean that one could use it to comprehend the law of space? Su Jingxing, who originally didn't want to continue playing with the demonic mirror, was pleasantly surprised. He decided to stay. As for these spatial fragments, they were naturally wrapped in soul power and put into his soul space. Then, Su Jingxing's primordial spirit took it out of the soul space and comprehended the law of space through the spatial Tao sentiment. Multitasking wasn't a problem for Su Jingxing. Boom! He descended and entered the space where the endless forest was through the hole. Su Jingxing's spiritual martial arts divine consciousness manifestation landed a palm strike on the ground the moment he entered. It was still the firmament nirvana palm. It covered down and slammed through the ground, creating a huge hole and producing a few spatial fragments. Swish! Swish! Soul power wrapped around the spatial fragments and put them into the soul space. Su Jingxing's spiritual martial arts divine consciousness manifestation continued to move downwards and pass through the hole to arrive at a world filled with yellow sand. Boom! Without another word, it continued downwards, punching through the sand and breaking space. The fragments produced by the shattering of space were collected immediately. Su Jingxing's spiritual martial consciousness manifestation entered the hole once more and came to a room filled with the elderly, women, and children. When these old, weak, women, and children saw Su Jingxing's spiritual martial arts divine consciousness manifestation, they screamed. They were terrified, their eyes were filled with panic and fear as they scattered and curled up in corners. Boom! Su Jingxing slapped down and shattered the ground, created a huge spatial hole and collected the spatial fragments. Trying to trigger me with such a small matter. Who are you looking down on? Most importantly, the demonic mirror seemed to have gotten anxious and messed up the context. All kinds of temptations were clearly ineffective against Su Jingxing. Su Jingxing neither fell for them nor would he touch them. Instead, he directly broke space. The demonic mirror's world was made up of countless spaces, and when each space shattered, there would be fragments. These spatial fragments were Su Jingxing's target. The demonic mirror transformed space and created all kinds of illusions, trying to lure Su Jingxing and trap his divine consciousness manifestation. But Su Jingxing's spiritual martial arts divine consciousness was powerful. Not only did he not take the bait, he even turned around and took advantage of the demonic mirror. Boom! Another space was broken and spatial fragments popped out. Su Jingxing's spiritual martial arts divine consciousness manifestation collected them. Boom! With a loud bang, a few more spatial fragments appeared. Boom! Again. Enough, enough. Just as Su Jingxing passed through a hole and was about to break space again, the demonic mirror's exasperated cry sounded in his mind. Enough, stop attacking. It's not enough. Su Jingxing's spiritual martial arts divine consciousness manifestation slapped down again as he spoke, punching through the ground and creating a huge hole. Around the hole, a few fragments floated slowly. Swoosh! Wrapping his soul power around them, he collected the spatial fragments. Su Jingxing nodded in satisfaction and prepared to enter the other worlds through the hole again. Yet his scene before his eyes suddenly flashed and his vision returned to normal. The main body's eyes surveyed his surroundings. It was the stone room in the underground cave under Inya Peak. In the air ahead, a mysterious demonic mirror was floating. I'm out. Su Jingxing's spiritual martial arts divine consciousness sensed his surroundings and confirmed that it was real and not in the demonic mirror's world. Immediately, he couldn't help but smile. Why are you so nice to send me out? The demonic mirror remained silent. The originally strange mirror surface was now smooth without any abnormalities. It was like a real ordinary mirror. Other than being bright, there was nothing else about it. Su Jingxing waited for a moment, but there was no response. He couldn't help but laugh out loud. Previously, the demonic mirror had wanted to lure him and turn him into a puppet. Now, it had admitted defeat. He could not be invaded, could not be tempted, could not be attacked. Trapping him almost destroyed the mirror entirely and it suffered heavy losses. How could the demonic mirror dare to keep such a troublemaker? It directly sent Su Jingxing out. The demonic mirror was afraid. Su Jingxing didn't leave immediately. Instead, he strolled around the stone chamber and sized up the demonic mirror. The floating demonic mirror was dead silent and still. It originally looked like a living life form, but now, it was a corpse. It allowed Su Jingxing to observe it without any reaction. Little did it know that on Earth Star, Su Jingxing's primordial spirit was taking out the spatial fragments from the soul space and comprehending them. Space fragments contain spatial Tao sentiment. If one comprehended them thoroughly, they would be able to possess the law of space. This was an extremely rare opportunity. The comprehension of laws was not something that could be received at a whim. Almost everyone needed an opportunity or opportunity. During a sudden opportunity, fall into an epiphany and finally comprehend the laws. This was Su Jingxing's current situation. Not only did his earlier senses match reality, it was also filled with pleasant surprise. Although Su Jingxing had already comprehended the law of destruction, no one would complain about having too many laws. The laws of space, time, flames, life. If he could comprehend all kinds of laws and grasp the power of laws, the demon emperor would be nothing. As such, Su Jingxing was in no hurry to leave the stone chamber where the demonic mirror was. Meanwhile, on Earth Star, the primordial spirit was speeding up to comprehend the spatial fragments. He wondered if he had collected enough spatial fragments. If they were enough for Su Jingxing to comprehend the law of space, there would naturally be no follow-up. But if there weren't enough, Su Jingxing would have to negotiate with the demonic mirror. Fragments that contained spatial Tao sentiment were good stuff. If Su Jingxing missed them just like that, he would definitely regret it. Therefore, Su Jingxing's main body wandered around the stone chamber while his primordial spirit comprehended the spatial Tao sentiment. Time passed bit by bit. The demonic mirror held back and remained silent the entire time. Outside, Dong Lai Wen paced around anxiously, but he did not dare to go near the stone chamber. He could only circle around on the spot and glance into the stone chamber from time to time. Without Su Jingxing coming out, he didn't dare nor could he leave. Earth Star. Su Jingxing's primordial spirit comprehended the spatial Tao sentiment in the fragments. The process was not complicated, but the spatial fragments were consumed very quickly. Driven by the soul, the spatial Tao sentiment quickly dissipated. Once they dissipated, they would completely disappear and could not be used again. Under such circumstances, it used up the spatial fragments one by one, but still had no clue about the law of space. When there were only 2 spatial fragments left, Su Jingxing's primordial spirit was suddenly enlightened. It understood what was going on with space and comprehended the mysteries of the law of space. This change was a little sudden, but once it understood, it understood. Once comprehended, it was comprehended. The illusory primordial spirit shuttled through the void only through the connections between spaces. However, after comprehending the law of space, it could connect 2, 3, and dozen spaces together and pass through them with even faster and more profound speed. Such shuttling would not be risky, and when needed, Su Jingxing could also create a few empty spaces. Of course, such empty spaces could not exist for a long time. Currently, Su Jingxing had only comprehended the law of space and not completely grasped it. Just like the law of destruction, he had only scratched the surface of it. It would still take a lot of time to create a true space and master the power of destruction. For now, Su Jingxing was satisfied. Thanks to the demonic mirror, he had comprehended the law of space. After staying in the Datong world for a long time, he finally had a satisfactory harvest. Thank you. Patting the demonic mirror in midair, Su Jingxing turned around and walked out of the stone chamber. Behind, in the stone chamber, the calm surface of the magic mirror suddenly rippled, and the face of a hideous giant bat monster appeared. It struggled to get out of the mirror. However, the moment it came out, it stopped. Its head shrank behind the mirror as it looked at Su Jingxing's back, eyes filled with grief and indignation. Heh, you actually endured it. Outside the stone chamber, Su Jingxing walked forward and looked at the demonic mirror with his divine consciousness. He chuckled inwardly. With his back facing the mirror, he was absolutely confident. Otherwise, it would be courting death. However, the demonic mirror could not do anything to Su Jingxing. Instead, it had been tricked by him for nothing. The spiritual martial arts divine consciousness of a 2-tribulation overlord was much stronger than that of a 1-tribulation overlord. Su Jingxing could sense that the power of the spiritual martial arts divine consciousness manifestation in the demonic mirror's world had not reached its limit. Compared to the last time he fought the demonic mirror, this was a world of difference. Last time, he had to use the red dragon reverse scale to escape, but now, Su Jingxing had left easily. No matter how aggrieved and indignant the demonic mirror was, it could do nothing to him. How is it, Overlord Kong? Are you alright? Dong Lai Wen, who was guarding outside, asked nervously when he saw Su Jingxing stepping out. I'm fine. Su Jingxing chuckled. The threat of the demonic mirror remains significant, but I can contend against it. That's good, that's good. Dong Lai Wen exhaled and relaxed. Since there's nothing else, shall we leave this place first? All right. Su Jingxing nodded. Having obtained his gains and knowing that Dong Lai Wen was worried that something would go wrong again, Su Jingxing naturally had no objections. The two of them returned to the surface through the passageway. After they were out, Dong Lai Wen sealed the entrance again and set up a restriction as protection. Before a solution was found, the demonic mirror would be sealed in the underground space forever. Of course, what happened subsequently had nothing to do with Su Jingxing. The teleportation array was almost repaired. After leaving Yenri sect, Su Jingxing waited for another half a month before the teleportation array was finally repaired. After half a year in the Datong dynasty, he could finally leave. He found Feng Fa and company, who were in hiding, and led them through the teleportation array and they entered the North Star region. The North Star region was also very big. The Seven Luminaries planet was just one of the larger planets with life. However, after entering the Northern Star region, Feng Fa was much more familiar with the way. The Heart Moon Foxes had dozens of strongholds in the North Star region. Following Feng Fa, Su Jingxing quickly arrived at the nearest stronghold. Feng Fa first reported the situation to the higher-ups and informed the Seven Luminaries planet's Heart Moon Fox sect about their experiences. In the end, he learned that Nian Gur had long returned to the Seven Luminaries planet from the glazed illusory sea. After ending the report, the group set off again. Su Jingxing headed to the Seven Luminaries planet together. After 10 days, they successfully arrived at the Heart Moon Fox sect on Seven Luminaries planet. Brother Kong, why don't you rest here for a while? Feng Fa invited politely, thinking that Su Jingxing was going to leave just like that. There's no hurry to rest. Let's go find the Fox King first. Su Jingxing smiled and said, I came to the Seven Luminaries planet to speak to the Fox King. Huh? Feng Fa's eyes widened in shock. Brother Kong, you said that you're here on the Seven Luminaries planet for some matters. It was with us? Yes. Su Jingxing nodded. If you're free, you can come and listen from the side. All right. All right, Feng Fa replied blankly. Clearly, he did not expect the important matter Su Jingxing was talking about to be related to the Heart Moon Foxes. Even at this point, Su Jingxing didn't share what it was. An important matter? What important matter requires such secrecy? Feng Fa came back to his senses. Puzzled, he led Su Jingxing to the Heart Moon Fox King, Feng Xian. Kong Xian. Feng Xian was delighted to see Su Jingxing. This is great. I thought you guys had encountered trouble, but it turned out that you guys went to the Kuntian world and participated in such a significant matter. Especially you, Kong Xian. You even helped Kuntian to fight and destroy the Void World. Impressive, really impressive. You're too kind. I just happened to be here. Su Jingxing waved his hand and smiled. Besides, that's all in the past. I came here today to discuss a collaboration with you. Collaboration? Feng Xian was curious and waved his hand. If there's anything you need, feel free to speak. As long as it's within our capabilities, we won't decline. Fox King, you've misunderstood. What I'm talking about is forming an alliance to enter the Azure Dragon world. Su Jingxing said calmly, the fourth Azure Dragon treasure box is in my hands. So it's about the Azure Dragon treasure box. Sure. Wait. Suddenly, Feng Xian's expression changed drastically. He said in shock, what did you say, Kong Xian? The Azure Dragon treasure box is in your hands? Beside him, Feng Fa was also shocked. He looked at Su Jingxing with shock, astonishment, and disbelief. Isn't the Azure Dragon treasure box in the glazed illusory sea? It has already disappeared without a trace with the dissipation of the glazed illusory sea. How could this be? Swoosh! At the thought of something, Feng Fa's expression turned serious. He looked straight at Su Jingxing and exclaimed, "You took the Azure Dragon treasure box in the glazed illusory sea, Overlord Kong?" "Yes." Su Jingxing didn't hide anything anymore. With a flip of his palm, he took out the Azure Dragon treasure box from the soul space and said calmly, "I took this last Azure Dragon treasure box from the glazed illusory sea." Feng Xian's eyes widened as he stared fixedly at the Azure Dragon treasure box. Feng Fa was shocked. After receiving confirmation, he was indescribably shocked. At that time, so many people had their eyes on the Azure Dragon treasure box, but Su Jingxing actually quietly took it away. And he carried it on him at all times. Feng Fa had been by Su Jingxing's side for so long, but he didn't notice anything at all. No wonder Su Jingxing wanted to come to the Seven Luminaries planet. No wonder Su Jingxing never mentioned what it was about. So, what it involved at the end was the Azure Dragon treasure box. Who? Panting suddenly sounded as an invisible force enveloped the room. Feng Fa snapped awake immediately upon sensing it. He looked at the source and saw greed appeared in the eyes of his Fox King. Cough. Coughing hard, Feng Fa suppressed his pounding heart and broke the silence. He said in a deep voice, "By the way, my king, I forgot to tell you something. Overlord Kong is now in the space-crushing realm, and he's a two-tribulation overlord." "Overlord, is it?" "I know, what? He's an overlord?" Feng Xian suddenly came to his senses. His pupils constricted as he shifted his gaze to Su Jingxing and said in shock, "Feng Fa, you said that Brother Kong is now in the space-crushing realm, he's a two-tribulation overlord?" "Yes." Feng Fa relaxed slightly and replied calmly, "Overlord Kong had an opportunity in the Kuntian world and successfully transcended the Void Lightning Tribulation to advance to the space-crushing realm. Moreover, he stepped into two tribulation in one go." That's great." Feng Xian smiled stiffly and said, "Good, that's great. Oh Overlord Kong, no wonder you addressed Brother Kong as Overlord. I was out of my mind just now and didn't hear you clearly. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry." As Feng Xian spoke, he stood up and apologized to Su Jingxing. "Please forgive me, Overlord Kong. I didn't hear him clearly previously and didn't congratulate you immediately. I feel really embarrassed." "It's fine." Su Jingxing smiled and raised his hand. He put away the Azure Dragon treasure box and said calmly, "There's no need for that, Fox King. Nothing else is important. I just want to know, are you willing to cooperate with me? After entering the Azure Dragon world, together with the first chief?" "Yes, of course." Feng Xian's expression turned serious as he said in a clear voice, "Don't worry, Overlord Kong. Putting aside the fact that we are allies to begin with, just based on our previous friendship, we should be on the same side. Why didn't you just make things clear from the start?" Feng Xian looked at Feng Fa and complained. "I'm sorry, I was careless." Feng Fa smiled apologetically. In fact, Su Jingxing had never told him before what this was about. Earlier, Feng Xian had wanted to seize the box. Everyone present knew that but no one mentioned it. Feng Fa didn't dare, and the same went for Feng Xian, on top of feeling wary. A two-tribulation overlord. Feng Xian did not doubt Feng Fa's words. He was indeed a little dizzy just now and almost fell for it. It was indeed shocking to learn that the Azure Dragon treasure box was in Su Jingxing's hands. His greed was completely instinctive. However, if they became enemies with Su Jingxing over the Azure Dragon treasure box, then the Heart Moon Foxes would be in for a disaster. Even First Chief Nian Gur might not be a match for a two-tribulation overlord. Only those who had experienced the might of the space-crushing realm would know what kind of power it was. Although Feng Xian had never seen it before, he had heard of it. The Heart Moon Fox King of the two generations before was even fortunate enough to have seen it. It also passed down the rules that the Heart Moon Foxes were not to provoke any spiritual martial artist. For this reason, the Heart Moon Foxes were very friendly to spiritual martial artists. Previously, Feng Xian even wanted to recruit Su Jingxing as a son-in-law of the Heart Moon Foxes. Fortunately, Feng Fa provided a timely reminder. Otherwise, he would be a sinner of the Heart Moon Foxes. At this thought, Feng Xian felt a chill run down his spine. Deep down, Feng Xian was filled with regret. Although no one had exposed him, the juncture when Feng Xian had almost acted had still left a crack in their relationship. It would be very, very difficult to repair this crack. Feng Xian regretted it inwardly and sighed helplessly, but there was nothing he could do. He could only wait for Su Jingxing to follow Feng Fa to get some rest before he went to Nian Gur to ask for her forgiveness. Are you sure he's holding the Azure Dragon treasure box? Nian Gur's cold voice sounded in the secret chamber. Yes, definitely, said Feng Xian in a low voice. There's no mistaking the Azure Dragon treasure box. There's no point for him to make a counterfeit either. How will he find the entrance to the Azure Dragon world with a fake Azure Dragon treasure box? Got it, Nian Gur replied coolly. I know what to do about the collaboration. If you enter the Azure Dragon world and see any treasure, you'd better help him once, no, thrice. Feng Xian pondered and instructed. Sure, Nian Gur said calmly. If there's nothing else, go out and contact the Tuahai family. They can contact the spirit race now. All right. Feng Xian opened his mouth but said nothing else. He turned around and left the secret chamber. There were a total of 4 Azure Dragon treasure boxes. Originally, the Tuahai family had hidden 2 of them. However, due to Tuahai Tian's ignorance, they lost one and this one was taken by the Heart Moon Foxes. Of the remaining 2, one was in the hands of the spirit race and the one, Su Jingxing. Only with all 4 treasure boxes gathered, could one find the entrance to the Azure Dragon world. The person with the highest realm in the Tuahai family was the Tuahai Quanfu, a venerable of meditation. For the Heart Moon Foxes, it was Nian Gur, a 6th realm devil king. Su Jingxing, a 2 tribulation overlord, could suppress them. However, the Azure Dragon treasure boxes with the spirit race were in the hands of the Spirit Emperor. The Spirit Emperor was an expert at the level of a 7th realm Devil Emperor, or the seeking realm of divine martial arts. If Su Jingxing was a 3 tribulation overlord, he wouldn't have to fear him. However, he was only a 2 tribulation overlord, so a negotiation had to be done. Entering the Azure Dragon world would be different from the last time he challenged the glazed illusory sea. The latter mainly required them to guard against the Tuahai family. The former not only included the Tuahai family, but also the spirit race. Although the spirit race and the human race had always been friendly and had a good relationship. In front of a treasure, it was hard to guarantee that they wouldn't have other thoughts. Feng Xian, the Heart Moon Fox King, had become greedy and wanted to seize the Azure Dragon treasure box. Not to mention the spirit race that Su Jingxing didn't know. The leader of the spirit race of the Kuntian world, Lei Zhen, could only represent the spirit race of the Kuntian world and not other worlds. Not to mention that the leader of the spirit race who held the Azure Dragon treasure boxes was a spirit emperor. It was because of the Spirit Emperor that Su Jingxing had traveled through the various star fields and followed Feng Fa back to the 7 Luminaries planet to form an alliance with the Heart Moon Foxes. Though, if the Spirit Emperor really were to make a move, they might not be able to resist him even if they joined forces. However, there must be a reason why the Tuahai family was not afraid. The Spirit Emperor might not personally head to the Azure Dragon world too. It could only be said that he had to consider all kinds of factors so that he would not be helpless and have no choice but to escape when problems arise. In short, Su Jingxing was fully prepared. The Heart Moon Foxes contacted the Tuahai family, and the Tuahai family contacted the spirit race. After all 3 parties gave confirmation, Su Jingxing boarded another spaceship with Nian Gur and set off for the 3 parties. No, Su Jingxing was one party alone. He headed to the meeting point for the four parties. A planet whose surface was covered in yellow sand. Whoosh! 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 Grains of sand danced in the air. The Heart Moon Fox's spaceship broke through the astral winds of the 9 heavens and slowly descended. While still in midair, they received a message. The spaceship turned around and headed for an area of sand dunes with a stretch of hills. Swoosh! 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 After the spaceship stopped, Su Jingxing and Nian Gur soared into the air and stood still. They looked at the 2 hills on the right. There was a starship parked on one of them. There was a person sitting cross-legged in the air above. It was the strongest expert of the Tuahai family, Tuahai Quanfu, who was in the meditation realm. On the other hill, there was also a strange-looking spaceship. On the deck stood a few men and women of the spirit race. One of the females had the most outstanding aura. A 6th realm spirit king. Su Jingxing was surprised. The leader of the team from the spirit race is not a 7th realm spirit emperor, but a 6th realm spirit king. I've guessed correctly. Is there really something wrong with the spirit emperor? You guys are late. As Su Jingxing pondered, Tuahai Quanfu's voice sounded in the air. We've been waiting here for 3 days. It's fine. Before Nian Gur could speak, the female from the spirit race smiled and said, it must have been because they were delayed by something on the way. Anyway, since they're here, it's fine. Nian Gur, long time no see. She waved at Nian Gur. Nian Gur was expressionless as she said coldly, cut the crap. Swoosh! With a wave of her palm, an azure dragon treasure box appeared out of thin air. It spun and emitted light. Nian Gur raised her hand and the azure dragon treasure box flew into the air, lingering in the center of the 4 parties. Seeing this, Su Jingxing took out his azure dragon treasure box and put it together with Nian Gur's. Aya, don't be in such a hurry. The female from the spirit race laughed coquettishly and clapped her hands. Then, she suddenly opened them and released the azure dragon treasure boxes that she had stored. They flew into the air. Humph. Tuahai Quanfu saw this and sneered coldly. Without waiting, he also released an azure dragon treasure box. Immediately, the 4 treasure boxes were finally gathered in midair again after countless years. Whoosh! 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 A hot wind blew and swept grains of sand into the sky. As an invisible force spun, unique auras burst out from thin air and surrounded the 4 azure dragon treasure boxes. The aura became stronger. Clusters of sand were pulled up and turned into tornadoes that coiled upwards. In an instant, a lifelike sand dragon condensed and circled around the 4 azure dragon treasure boxes, letting out low roars. Roar! 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 The dragon's roar began softly and quickly became louder and brighter. Until a deafening dragon roar suddenly exploded and spread for thousands of miles. The 4 azure dragon treasure boxes surrounded by the sand dragon suddenly collided. Whoosh! A dazzling light suddenly bloomed. Under everyone's gaze, the 4 azure dragon treasure boxes fused into one and turned into a strange substance that resembled mud. It moved and spun on its own before coiling in rings like a snake. Swoosh! 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 The slithering snake slowly increased its speed, faster and faster. Until it turned into a huge dragon head with dragon horns, dragon whiskers, dragon scales, dragon teeth, and dragon eyes. The most eye-catching dragon's mouth was 3 meters tall and 2 meters wide. A purplish-red glow spun inside, releasing a magical aura. As soon as this aura collided with the aura of the outside world, space immediately distorted and ripples appeared. In midair, with the dragon head as the center, space within a radius of 100 meters distorted. This is the entrance to the Azure Dragon world. The female spirit's eyes lit up as she looked at the dragon's mouth in surprise. This should be it. Tuahai Quanfu's breathing was a little fast. There's no problem with the Azure Dragon treasure boxes, nor is there any problem with the fusion. Naturally, there's no problem with the entrance either. With that, his figure flashed and he was the first to fly into the dragon's mouth. With 2 more steps, he would be able to enter another world where the purple-red glow was circulating. Swoosh! The female spirit's figure flashed as she followed him into the dragon's mouth. She stood beside Tuahai Quanfu and chuckled. Elder Tuahai, why aren't you going in? Why are you standing outside? Swoosh! Swoosh! Nian Guo's figure flashed and she entered the dragon's mouth. Finally, Su Jingxing walked into the wide dragon's mouth. Tuahai Quanfu and the female spirit were in front while Nian Guo and Su Jingxing were slightly behind. Hee, I was thinking of letting the Spirit King go first, replied Tuahai Quanfu with an insincere smile. I should allow the Spirit King to advance first in a place like the Azure Dragon world. Thank you, Elder Tuahai. The female spirit chuckled. I won't stand on ceremony then. With that, she took 2 steps forward and walked into the purple-red glow. However, as soon as half of her body entered, she suddenly retreated. Oh dear, something is wrong here. The female spirit exclaimed, Elder Tuahai, Sister Guo, come and take a look too. There's something wrong with this Azure Dragon world. Su Jingxing raised his eyebrows but did not move. Tuahai Quanfu hesitated for a moment before taking 2 steps forward. Half of his body entered the purplish-red glow. Nian Guo did not move either. Her gaze was cold. There is indeed a problem. Tuahai Quanfu retreated and said in surprise, logically speaking, the Azure Dragon world is a complete world. Even if the laws are incomplete, everything that should be there will be there. But this one in front of us is actually just a sea of darkness. Darkness? Nian Guo was puzzled. You said there's nothing inside. That's right, Sister Guo, the female spirit said softly. It's pitch black inside. Nothing can be seen. Even with your divine consciousness and soul, you can't see. Su Jingxing interrupted. If you don't believe me, you can come and take a look yourself. The female spirit looked at Su Jingxing and smiled sweetly. There's no point in us lying about such matters. Su Jingxing did not move and glanced at Nian Guo. Why? Do you take orders from Sister Guo? Seeing this, the female spirit smiled sweetly and said, Sister Guo is really charming. You charmed thousands of handsome boys, even. Enough, Ziluoyan Qingxiao. Nian Guo's expression was cold as she shouted in a low voice, You're the shameless one. Don't drag me into this. With that, she circled around Tuahai Quanfu. TSK, she went in directly. Seeing this, Ziluoyan Qingxia exclaimed, Sister Guo, won't you think this through carefully? What if you barge in and encounter danger? Forget it, forget it. I'll accompany you this time. As she spoke, Ziluoyan Qingxia's figure flashed and she followed Nian Guo into the purplish-red glow. Tuahai Quanfu's eyes flashed. He glanced at Su Jingxing and followed suit. Su Jingxing was the only one left. Without hesitation, he stepped forward and walked into the purplish-red glow. Darkness. Ziluoyan Qingxia was not joking. The moment he entered, endless darkness instantly filled his vision and even his divine consciousness. Even his soul seemed to be blinded, unable to see anything. The space around him was quiet, dead, and dark. There was nothing there. Su Jingxing couldn't even sense the auras of the 3 others. The famous Azure Dragon world looks like this? It has nothing at all. Su Jingxing frowned. Suddenly, he sensed something and activated his Dharma characteristic eyes. Whoosh! His vision suddenly changed drastically, and a dark blue starry sky appeared. Not empty, but the starry sky of the universe. Su Jingxing couldn't tell the difference between this place and the outside world. In short, the starry sky in front of him appeared dark blue in the Dharma characteristic eyes. Of course, it was also a sea of darkness in the distance. However, in the pitch-black darkness, silvery white light orbs were scattered and filled the space. Like the sun in the universe, they emitted light and heat, adding illumination to the dark universe. These orbs of light were the suns of the Azure Dragon world. As for Nian Gur, Tuahai Quanfu, and Ziluoyan Qingxia, they were on the left, right and front respectively of Su Jingxing. In his Dharma characteristic eyes, the eyes of the three people were also glowing with different beams of light. Ziluoyan Qingxia's green light eyes immediately glanced at Su Jingxing, as if she had sensed something amiss. "Hey, handsome boy, you're not bad. You actually have divine eyes too." Suddenly, Ziluoyan Qingxia's green eyes shone brightly as they met Su Jingxing's gaze. "Hey, I almost couldn't tell that you're actually a human spiritual martial artist, handsome boy. Impressive, a human overlord. I actually didn't discover this before. I was really careless and misjudged." Ziluoyan Qingxia clicked her tongue and sighed. "Humph." Tuahai Quanfu sneered coldly. His reddish-brown eyes swept across Su Jingxing, but he did not say anything. Nian Gur acted as if she hadn't heard anything as well. Her moon-white eyes scanned her surroundings and rushed towards the nearest light cloud without another word. However, her posture was very strange. She was clearly leaning forward, walking forward, but her movements were extremely slow, as if she was an ordinary old woman in her 80s or 90s. Every step took a lot of effort. Tuahai Quanfu and Ziluoyan Qingxia were both stunned by this scene. "Hey, Sister Gur, what's wrong?" Ziluoyan Qingxia smiled coquettishly. "Why are you suddenly unwell? Do you need my help?" With that, she also flew forward and approached Nian Gur. However, once she moved, she quickly became like Nian Gur. Her movements were slow and sluggish, as if she would collapse after taking a few steps. Seeing this, Tuahai Quanfu's expression changed. Su Jingxing was not an ID*OT. He naturally understood that this was because of the void of this universe. Without hesitation, he took a step forward. As expected, Su Jingxing immediately sensed a powerful repulsive force around him, stopping him from moving. Whether it was forward, backward, upwards, or downwards. The void of this universe was like a quagmire, limiting mobility. Even if Su Jingxing continued to increase his strength, circulate his spiritual essence, and erupt with immense strength, it wouldn't boost his mobility much. He turned his head and looked at Tuahai Quanfu. The old fellow's movements were also obstructed. He was slow and was no different from other ordinary old men. The universe outside was endless. The void here also seemed to be endless. The light clouds that Ziluoyan Qingxia, Nian Gur, Tuahai Quanfu, and Su Jingxing saw through their respective methods and with the help of their divine eyes were an unknown distance away from them. If there was no powerful resistance, given their realms, flying at high speed and shuttling through space would naturally be no problem. However, right now, space seemed to have frozen and powerful resistance was everywhere. It was probably impossible to reach the light cloud. Su Jingxing released his divine consciousness to scan outside, but it was also blocked. Time and space in this Azure Dragon world were different from the outside world. They were interfered with by a strange force. "No." Ziluoyan Qingxia was the first to shout. "This can't go on. Sister Gur, Elder Tuahai, do you have any ideas? Now is not the time to hide your abilities. And you, handsome boy. You're a spiritual martial arts overlord. Aren't you going to try to shatter space? If I had a way, would I need you to tell me?" Tuahai Quanfu retorted irritably. "Isn't the innate ability of the spirit race very strong?" Nian Gur countered. "It won't work either." Ziluoyan Qingxia stopped laughing and shouted aggrievedly, "I tried everything just now, but it didn't work. I was stopped." As she spoke, Her body erupted with light that washed out in all directions. In the end, it was as if these lights had entered a quagmire and were slowly extending outwards. Su Jingxing was speechless. Nothing worked. This Azure Dragon world actually had so many restrictions and was so terrifying. Can I use the power of spiritual martial arts to shatter space? Su Jingxing thought for a moment and mobilized this power. It was not pure physical strength, but the ability of the space-crushing realm, the power to shatter the void. Pooh! A dull and strange sound was heard. Previously, Nian Gur, Ziluoyan Qingxia, Tua Hai Quanfu, and Su Jingxing had all used mental voice transmissions. Sound was also isolated and blocked in this void. But now, the sound of a punch was heard. With this punch, a dent that was half the height of a person and less than a meter in length and width appeared in front of Su Jingxing. It was clearly the void, but after Su Jingxing's punch, a materialized dent was created. All right. Ziluoyan Qingxia exclaimed in surprise and shouted happily, "Handsome boy, you're amazing. The ability of spiritual martial arts to shatter space is indeed extraordinary. This world has blocked all kinds of power, but it can't do anything to the might of spiritual martial arts." When the Lord of the Azure Dragon world was alive, he probably would never have dreamed that the Azure Dragon world he left behind would see the arrival of a spiritual martial arts overlord. "It's indeed not bad," said Tua Hai Quanfu calmly, glancing at Su Jingxing. Nian Gur did not say anything. She only glanced at Su Jingxing before looking away. "It's all right." Su Jingxing didn't say anything else. He was also a little surprised by the power of space crushing. He had personally experienced how powerful the obstruction of the void here was. Now that he had created a dent with a single punch, he had to admit that it felt great. Although he was a little uncomfortable that the dent created would allow Ziluoyan Qingxia, Tua Hai Quanfu, and Nian Gur to benefit, they still had a long way to go. Now that Su Jingxing was providing convenience for them, he could similarly take advantage of them in the future. There was still a long way to go. He could only accept this. He couldn't possibly open up a passageway and refuse to let them pass. If that was the case, Su Jingxing would have to face the joint efforts of Ziluoyan Qingxia, Tua Hai Quanfu, and Nian Gur. Even if Su Jingxing were to put Nian Gur on his side, the joint efforts of Ziluoyan Qingxia and Tua Hai Quanfu would not feel good. Tua Hai Quanfu was fine, but there was always a strange aura wrapped around Ziluoyan Qingxia. Su Jingxing couldn't sense anything on the other party, but it was never wrong to be careful. It was too early to start the battle to the death in advance. At this thought, Su Jingxing put away his thoughts and threw another punch. Pooh! With a dull thud, the depression grew bigger and deepened. Seeing this, Su Jingxing clenched his fists and continued to attack. Pooh! 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 Punch after punch, punch after punch. His punches burst forth with the power to shatter space, causing the dents to widen and deepen. In a few moments, a passageway that was 2 meters tall, 1.5 meters wide, and more than 10 meters deep appeared in the air. Su Jingxing walked into the innermost area and continued punching to deepen the passageway. Ziluoyan Qingxia, Nian Gur, and Tua Hai Quanfu also walked over slowly from the side and entered the passageway, following behind. "You've worked hard, handsome." Ziluoyan Qingxia smiled coquettishly. With a flash of light in her hand, a pile of fruits that emitted sparkling white light appeared and she threw them at Su Jingxing. "This is the heaven spirit fruit of the spirit race. It can increase the power of the soul after consumption. Little handsome man, take them as my toll fee." Swish! 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 Without looking back, Su Jingxing caught all the fruits with his empty hand. He scanned them with his divine consciousness and confirmed that they were spiritual fruits with abundant energy. He accepted them without standing on ceremony. Swish! A stream of light flashed past, and Su Jingxing's free hand caught another short sword. This is the soul-devouring sword that I've tempered with my primordial spirit for 3,000 years. When activated to the extreme, it can injure those in the seeking realm. Tuahai Quanfu's calm voice sounded. However, this sword can only be used once. It will be destroyed after use, but it should be enough as a toll fee. Su Jingxing did not respond and only accepted it unceremoniously. He accepted these 2 toll fees easily and with great confidence. He had thought that Ziluoyan Qingxia and Tuahai Quanfu would shamelessly make use of the passageway. He did not expect them to pay for the journey. Su Jingxing naturally didn't stand on ceremony. As for Nian Gur, Su Jingxing did not rush her. He continued to punch and deepen the passageway. 100 meters, 1,000 meters, 10,000 meters. As he sped up, the passageway lengthened. Until a certain moment. Destroyed dead star discovered. Extracting it would give the 100 billion-year-old true sun crystal. Would you like to extract it? Yes. After the extraction notification flashed past, Su Jingxing remained calm and collected. He continued to punch and deepen the passageway. Su Jingxing's primordial spirit took out the new card from the soul space. Equipment card. It contained a piece of true sun crystal, the core left behind after the collapse of a sun that had existed for 100 billion years. Strictly speaking, this true sun crystal was also a heavenly Tao crystal, but the energy and Tao sentiment it contained was much stronger. Swoosh! He unlocked the card and obtained a palm-sized black crystal. It was difficult to tell from its appearance that this crystal was the true sun crystal. Su Jingxing's primordial spirit sized it up for a moment and released its divine consciousness to scan the crystal and try to sense it. In the end, its brain, no, it should be its soul, suddenly felt a sharp pain. Its primordial spirit divine consciousness was destroyed, and the primordial spirit body also turned illusory in an instant, twisting and swaying, almost collapsing. I can't scan it. This true sun crystal could not even be scanned. It was fine being held in its hand. The surface was cold, like a piece of metal. It was neither too heavy nor light. However, when it inspected the interior and scanned the Tao sentiment contained within, the primordial spirit divine consciousness actually could not do so. As soon as it came into contact with it, the divine consciousness was burned by a terrifying heat and destroyed. Su Jingxing's primordial spirit temporarily let go of the crystals to repair its body. Even though the true sun crystal was so abnormal and his primordial spirit was injured, Su Jingxing was not angry. Instead, he was delighted. Earlier, when his divine consciousness was destroyed, Su Jingxing had also caught a trace of the aura and powerful Tao sentiment. It was flame Tao sentiment. No, it doesn't seem to be flame Tao sentiment. This was because the terrifying heat also contained the aura of extreme yang. To be exact, it should be called extreme yang Tao sentiment, containing the law of yang. The source of all light and heat, one of the laws of yin and yang, extreme yang. Yes, extreme yang. The reason why the true sun crystal could destroy the divine consciousness once it attempted a scan was because the extreme yang Tao sentiment was contained in the crystal. With spatial Tao sentiment, comprehending it directly was also dangerous, and one's consciousness could be lost in endless space. However, as long as he guarded his heart and his will remained strong, he would be able to stabilize and comprehend the law of space bit by bit. The same would not work with extreme yang Tao sentiment. Or rather, the risk of comprehending it was too great. The divine consciousness was destroyed as soon as it came into contact with it. This showed how dangerous it was. However, if one really succeeded, the final gains would be great. He would comprehend the law of extreme yang, then transform from extreme yang to extreme yin, fuse them into one, and control the laws of yin and yang. Just the thought of the power of the laws of yin and yang made one drool. TSK. If all of this could be achieved, it would be worth it even if Su Jingxing's primordial spirit was completely destroyed. Oh right, Su Jingxing's primordial spirit was indestructible. As long as there were enough heavenly Tao crystals, the primordial spirit could remain immortal. The extreme Yang Tao sentiment destroyed one's divine consciousness as soon as they came into contact. It was extremely dangerous, but the primordial spirit remained. Su Jingxing refused to believe that he could not comprehend the law of extreme Yang after repeatedly coming into contact and comprehending it. With this in mind, he returned to the lack of heavenly Tao crystals. Void annihilation required heavenly Tao crystals, keeping the primordial spirit indestructible required heavenly Tao crystals, and comprehending the law of extreme Yang also required heavenly Tao crystals. Heavenly Tao crystals, heavenly Tao crystals. Where can I get more heavenly Tao crystals? Although detonating a Tao weapon would work in separating the worlds as well, Su Jingxing only had one Tao weapon in his possession. It was not enough for separation. Moreover, compared to detonating Tao weapons, using heavenly Tao crystals for the separation was safer. Therefore, it was best to use heavenly Tao crystals. The only problem was that heavenly Tao crystals were really difficult to find. Azure Dragon World. In the pitch-black universe. Su Jingxing's main body swung his fists and kept deepening the passageway. All this way, his speed was already very fast. His entire body was like a digging machine as he swung his fists and dug holes. He sprinted through the air, going deeper and deeper. Heading straight to the nearest light cloud. When the passageway was completed and the light cloud was successfully connected, a ray of bright light came into view. "Ha, we're finally here." Ziluoyan Qingxia was the first to cheer. In a flash, she rushed out of the passageway and stood in an empty space. The spot where the light cloud was located was an incomparably huge piece of land. On land, there were mountains, plains, rivers, and sand. But no life. There were no trees in the mountains. They were bare and filled with stones. The plains were empty, without a single weed. The rivers were also dry, without a drop of water. The sand was pure yellow sand. From afar, it scattered on the ground like powder. This is too barren. Ziluoyan Qingxia looked up at the sky and sensed the aura contained in this land. Extreme Yang Dao sentiments were floating. This was what Su Jingxing sensed. Su Jingxing's primordial spirit divine consciousness had just been destroyed by the extreme Yang Dao sentiment once, so he wouldn't forget it anytime soon. It was also because of the extreme Yang Dao sentiment that this piece of land was illuminated. As for the lack of oxygen, it did not affect the four of them at all. Everyone had long passed the stage where they needed to breathe to maintain their lives. They scanned their surroundings with their mental power and divine consciousness, trying to spot any abnormalities. But they found nothing. This land was just a piece of desolate and dead land. "Let's go." Ziluoyan Qingxia sighed and looked at Su Jingxing. She smiled sweetly and said, "We'll have to trouble the handsome guy to open up another passageway." "There's no problem with doing that." Su Jingxing remained calm and said coolly, "But I have a condition." "What condition?" Tua Haiquanfu's voice was low as he stared at Su Jingxing. Nian Gur remained silent. "If there are heavenly Tao crystals in the next light cloud, I want half of them." Su Jingxing's gaze calmly swept across Tua Haiquanfu and Ziluoyan Qingxia. Only Su Jingxing could open up a passageway. The toll fees from before could cover 3 routes at most, not all. Su Jingxing was not so generous as to help them break through all the passageways between the light clouds and only collect a fee once. Now was the time to state his conditions. It would be perfect if they agreed. Su Jingxing alone would take half of the heavenly Tao crystals that were subsequently discovered. If they didn't. Su Jingxing sneered inwardly as his gaze shifted to Ziluoyan Qingxia, Tua Haiquanfu, and even Nian Gur. Especially Nian Gur. She was an ally. They had agreed to work together. "No problem," Nian Gur replied coldly. "Half of the heavenly Tao crystals is a little too much. Ziluoyan Qingxia smiled coquettishly for a while but ultimately agreed. But it doesn't matter. If you don't open a passageway, even with the heavenly Tao crystals, we won't be able to reach our destination to retrieve them. So, I have no problem. Tuahai Quanfu was silent, his gaze shifting rapidly. After a while, he replied in a low voice, sure. So what if he didn't agree? Ziluoyan Qingxia and Nian Gur had both expressed their stand. If he didn't agree, wouldn't he be independent of the three of them? Tuahai Quanfu was not stupid. Compared to Su Jingxing, Tuahai Quanfu was the real old monster. The old fellow did not become the first elder of the Tuahai family from the very beginning because he was powerful. He had also worked his way up step by step in the early stages. Before he became the first elder, Tuahai Quanfu had already lived for more than 10,000 years. Although half of the long years were spent cultivating, Tuahai Quanfu knew when to make what kind of choice. Now that they needed Su Jingxing, as long as his conditions were not unacceptable, Tuahai Quanfu would accept them. There was no loss in agreeing first. At most. Very good. Su Jingxing sent a mental voice transmission, but his soul power quickly condensed a contract of oath. Soul contract for short. A contract specially used to keep oaths that was targeted at the soul. It was condensed from soul power and formed in the air. Su Jingxing immediately threw in a trace of his soul origin to activate the soul contract. Then, he looked at Ziluoyan Qingxia, Tuahai Quanfu, and Nian Gur. He sent a voice transmission and smiled. I'll have to trouble everyone to take the oath. Tuahai Quanfu was speechless. He, looks like you're worried about us, handsome. Ziluoyan Qingxia giggled and swayed. Nian Gur was also silent. However, she still did not say anything. She only released a trace of her soul origin and placed it into the soul contract. She was still the first to express her stand. All right. Ziluoyan Qingxia shook her head. Since Sister Gur has agreed, I naturally have to follow. With that, she released a trace of her soul origin and threw it into the soul contract. After that, she looked at Tuahai Quanfu and smiled sweetly. What about you, Elder Tuahai? Humph. Tuahai Quanfu's expression darkened. He did not respond and only released a trace of his soul origin to complete the oath. After the soul contract was completed, the patterns in the air instantly disappeared. They split into 4 portions and entered the foreheads of the 4 people, binding to their souls. Once someone violated it, their soul would be injured. At that time, it would be good enough if one could escape safely, let alone make a move. Su Jingxing was also assured now. Of course, the soul contract was not 100% safe with no hidden dangers. However, with the soul contract, he at least had the confidence to counterattack. They continued to set off for another light cloud. Su Jingxing swung his fists and opened up a new passageway. In the dark void, a second corporeal passageway quickly appeared. Ziluoyan Qingxia, Nian Gur, and Tuahai Quanfu followed Su Jingxing to the second light cloud. This time, the location of the light cloud was a rolling magma lake. Similarly, there was no life. The magma that had existed for an unknown period of time remained active under the stimulation of the extreme Yang Dao sentiment. The scorching aura distorted the air. Su Jingxing and company split up to search for possible treasures. After a round of searching, they still did not find anything. Decisively, Su Jingxing did not stay any longer and continued to open up a passageway to head to the next light cloud. The third passageway appeared, but there was no gain. The fourth passageway appeared, but there was no gain. The fifth. When Su Jingxing opened up the 31st passageway, Ziluoyan Qingxia, Nian Gur, and Tuahai Quanfu followed him to the 31st light cloud. They finally made a discovery. Moreover, the 4 of them caught sight of the gains as soon as they stepped out of the passageway. Heavenly Dao crystals. Pieces of heavenly Dao crystals of various sizes floated in the air without any directions. Under the extreme Yang Dao sentiment, this void was filled with light, so one could clearly see pieces of heavenly Dao crystals floating motionlessly. At a glance, there were at least 1,000 pieces. You've struck gold. Zi Luoyin's eyes widened subconsciously as she shouted in shock, "Handsome boy, you've struck gold. You've made a killing." Tuahai Quanfu said nothing, but his expression was extremely ugly. Su Jingxing was taking half of so many heavenly Dao crystals. F***ck, this was simply taking his. Wait. Suddenly, Tuahai Quanfu's expression changed. In a flash, he flew over and grabbed a heavenly Dao crystal. "Sai, Elder Tuahai, are you breaking the contract?" asked Ziluoyan Qingxia in amusement. He discovered that there is something wrong with the heavenly Dao crystals. Su Jingxing slowly stepped forward and walked to a heavenly Dao crystal. He picked it up and placed it in his palm to examine it carefully. He then scanned it with his divine consciousness. There's a problem with the heavenly Dao crystals. Ziluoyan Qingxia was surprised. With a flash, she also flew to a heavenly Dao crystal and picked it up to examine it. The heavenly Dao crystals are empty, Nian Gur said in a low voice. That's right. These heavenly Dao crystals are empty. They're just shells, Su Jingxing replied. Tuahai Quanfu did not say anything, but his expression returned to normal, and his eyes were even filled with smiles. Empty heavenly Dao crystals, so what if Su Jingxing took them? They were just beautiful crystals that could do nothing. He was really too jealous earlier. Tuahai Quanfu shook his head in amusement and released his divine consciousness to scan the heavenly Dao crystals floating nearby. Then, his expression changed again, turning extremely ugly. Because. No, this heavenly Dao crystal is still useful. Ziluoyan Qingxia cried out in alarm. Her divine consciousness swept across the heavenly Dao crystals nearby and she said in shock, "Some of these heavenly Dao crystals are empty, some have half of their energy remaining, and some are full." Indeed. Nian Gur glanced at Tuahai Quanfu and said with a smile, "These heavenly Dao crystals left behind by the Lord of the Azure Dragon world are probably those he didn't finish using. Some are intact, and some are empty shells. I reckon that the Lord didn't check them or was too lazy to do so, so he left them all here." Most likely. Ziluoyan Qingxia chimed in with a smile. In that case, the handsome boy has still profited. We just don't know how much he has earned. Come, let me give you a hand. Let's see how much more is useful. With that, her figure flashed as she moved to check the other heavenly Dao crystals. Su Jingxing also moved away and released his divine consciousness to scan the heavenly Dao crystals. Tuahai Quanfu did not move. He stood rooted to the ground with a gloomy expression. Nian Gur did not move either. She stood still and guarded Tuahai Quanfu. Tuahai Quanfu's expression darkened. It was obvious that Nian Gur was monitoring him. Ned Fox. Tuahai Quanfu was furious, but he did not show it on his face. He quickly restrained his expression and remained calm. On the other side, Su Jingxing and Ziluoyan Qingxia quickly checked the heavenly Dao crystals floating in the air one by one. After scanning everything, they brought back the useful heavenly Dao crystals before returning to Nian Gur and Tuahai Quanfu. Not bad, not bad. Ziluoyan Qingxia's eyes lit up. She said happily, "There are a total of 57 heavenly Dao crystals that are still useful. 21 of them are intact. Little handsome man, you can take 11 of them first. Of the remaining 36, some are left with half, some are left with a third of their energy. Handsome one, you can also take 18 of them. How does that sound?" "I have no objections," Nian Gur replied calmly. "I have no objections either," agreed Tuahai Quanfu in a low voice. "Me neither," Su Jingxing replied coolly. He couldn't take much advantage of this distribution method. It was very compatible with the earlier contract where Su Jingxing would take half of the crystals. Since no one has any objections, let's do this. Smiling, Ziluoyan Qingxia gave half of the useful heavenly Tao crystals to Su Jingxing. 11 intact pieces and 18 incomplete pieces. The rest was then split among the 3 of them. Out of the 10 intact pieces, each person would get 3 pieces first. The remaining piece would be distributed by quantity with the 18 incomplete pieces. It just so happened that it was unrealistic to average out to 3 portions, but it was possible to make about 3 portions. Su Jingxing didn't pay much attention to this. He put the heavenly Tao crystals away in his soul space. On Earth Star, his primordial spirit took out 5 intact heavenly Tao crystals from the soul space and fused them into the 5th level of the cosmic tower, officially activating the defense mechanism of an indestructible primordial spirit. As for separating the void world on Earth Star, the primordial spirit thought for a moment and did not execute it immediately. In his primordial spirit state, Su Jingxing was indeed in the 3rd class of the soul platform realm and was the #1 expert on Earth Star. However, compared to having the primordial spirit shatter the void and move in it, having Su Jingxing's main body, a spiritual martial arts body do so, would be much better. Just in case, it was better to wait for Su Jingxing to finish exploring the Azure Dragon world and his spiritual martial arts body to return to Earth Star before destroying the void. Studying the true sun crystal was placed last on the list. He had no choice but to do so. Even though his gains this time were huge, 11 intact and 18 incomplete heavenly Tao crystals, given how terrifying the true sun crystals were, the spare heavenly Tao crystals were probably still not enough for Su Jingxing to comprehend the law of extreme yang. Therefore, he still had to find more heavenly Tao crystals. However, his luck seemed to have run out. Next, Su Jingxing continued to open up a passageway that connected to the other light clouds. When they arrived, the light clouds were either desolate, dead silent, or covered in snow. The passageways were continuously opened, and the locations of the light clouds were explored. They were no longer lucky enough to encounter heavenly Tao crystals. They did not see any other treasures either. Not to mention the legacy of the Lord of the Azure Dragon world. When another passageway was completed and they entered a new light cloud, they saw an incomparably huge creature. A dragon. A giant dragon that was more than 100,000 meters long with silver scales, dragon claws, dragon whiskers, dragon head, dragon horns. Every aspect of the true dragon race was clearly and perfectly presented. It lay motionless on the silent wasteland. Dead? Ziluoyan Qingxia's eyes flickered. She flew in midair and scanned the dragon's entire body. She said in surprise, "How did this silver dragon of creation die here?" Silver dragon of creation? Su Jingxing's heart skipped a beat. He sent a voice transmission. "You said it's the silver dragon of creation? Is it a member of the true dragon race?" "Of course." Ziluoyan Qingxia didn't suspect anything else. She thought that Su Jingxing had never seen the silver dragon of creation before and explained, "The silver dragon of creation is a special existence among the dragon race. They aren't the strongest dragons, but they are the most heaven-defying ones. Resurrection and regrowing of severed limbs is only secondary. The most powerful ability they have is that they can create things out of thin air. Not just inanimate objects, but also living creatures. Humans as well." Tuahai Quanfu couldn't help but interrupt and shout coldly, "As far as I know, the works of the silver dragon of creation are all monsters and B** stars. Their life conditions are also very unstable. In the end, they will basically mutate in all kinds of ways and collapse before dying. None of them can have a good ending. That's because the silver dragon of creation didn't use its full strength." Ziluoyan Qingxia argued, "The reason why the living creatures that were created ultimately disintegrated was because the ability of the silver dragon of creation to create things out of thin air was limited. If it were to use all its might, it would be able to create a complete species. However, once it was created with all its might, the silver dragon of creation would suffer some losses. Its physical body or soul would be affected. It said that every silver dragon of creation can only create one complete species in its lifetime. Tuahai Quanfu remained silent. Su Jingxing thought for a moment and asked curiously, I wonder if this silver dragon of creation has created a species. The reason why the Azure Dragon World Master placed it here is most likely to let it create things. That's why it's dead. Ziluoyan Qingxia raised her eyebrows. It's not dead. Nian Gur suddenly sent a voice transmission. This silver dragon of creation has only fallen into a deep sleep. Not dead? Asked Ziluoyan Qingxia in surprise. Tuahai Quanfu's eyelids twitched. Su Jingxing wasn't surprised. The moment he entered this light cloud and saw the silver dragon of creation, he knew that it was not dead. Under the eyes of the spiritual martial arts Dharma characteristic, the physical body of the silver dragon of creation still retained its vitality, and the dragon's soul overlapped with the physical body. The body of a dead true dragon might be able to maintain its vitality, but its soul would definitely have been destroyed. It's actually not dead. After recovering from her surprise, Ziluoyan Qingxia smiled and said, that's perfect. If we awaken it, we should be able to obtain relevant information about this world and what the Lord of the Azure Dragon world has done. I'm just afraid we can't awaken it, Nian Gur replied coldly. Can't? Ziluoyan Qingxia chuckled. Sister Gur, watch carefully. See how I wake it up. As soon as she finished speaking, light shot out from Ziluoyan Qingxia's eyes. In a flash, it shot towards the head of the silver dragon of creation that was as big as a 10,000-foot mountain peak. It entered its head and disappeared. Silence. 5 minutes passed, but the silver dragon of creation did not react. 10 minutes passed, but there was still no reaction. Embarrassment appeared on Ziluoyan Qingxia's face. Her eyes shone brightly again as the light entered the dragon's head. As her body glowed, an ultimate move struck the dragon's closed eyes. In the end, there was still no reaction. Half an hour passed, but the silver dragon of creation still did not react. This fellow hasn't died in its sleep, has it? Asked Ziluoyan Qingxia awkwardly. Let me try. Tuahai Quanfu sneered softly. His figure flashed as he released his ultimate move. The ultimate move in the primordial spirit aspect struck the dragon's head. However, the silver dragon of creation still did not react. The hibernation of a true dragon. Ordinary attacks won't work. Nian Gur said coldly, we have to use intense stimulation to awaken it. Do you have such methods, Sister Gur? Ziluoyan Qingxia looked at her. No. Then what should we do? An adult silver dragon of creation, even if not in the 7th realm, was at least in the 6th realm. In other words, its physical body was immortal, and the body of a true dragon was even more terrifying. Neither the meteorite cannon or the Death Star cannon could break it. For this reason, it was extraordinarily difficult to awaken the silver dragon of creation. Let me have a go. In the silence, Su Jingxing spoke. Sure. When Ziluoyan Qingxia heard this, she agreed happily, handsome boy, feel free to do whatever you want. Su Jingxing did not respond. He only slowly approached the huge head of the silver dragon of creation. When he arrived above the dragon's head, he quietly took out a nightmare card, unlocked it, and applied it to the silver dragon of creation. Previously, Su Jingxing had cultivated the Emperor Chu's Jade Book and specially obtained an official position in the U-Nation. The Dragon-Seeking Envoy. Searching for the dragon-piercing devil insect and the silver dragon of creation. The former was a type of extraterrestrial devil insect, while the latter was a mutated beast that was mutated from a beast spirit devil insect. Su Jingxing was surprised when he heard the name, Silver Dragon of Creation earlier. Especially its innate ability, it was exactly the same as the mutated beasts that Su Jingxing knew. This made Su Jingxing suspect that the silver dragon of creation circulating on Earth's star might be a dragon-shaped mutated beast to begin with. Its true body was the silver dragon of creation. Or perhaps, it possessed the bloodline of the silver dragon of creation. However, it had never appeared since ancient times. Only after the arrival of the extraterrestrial devil insect did it occasionally appear and was discovered. That was why the origin of the silver dragon of creation was established to be the beast spirit devil insect. However, in reality, the silver dragon of creation was a true dragon. With the same name and ability, the silver dragon of creation on Earth's star might be much weaker, but this true dragon that was more than 100,000 meters long undoubtedly possessed terrifying strength. Since external forces could not awaken it, Su Jingxing couldn't help but think of the few cards in his possession. The Nightmare card, Curse card, Mental Demon card. The latter two would easily start a feud, and their effects were limited now. The Nightmare card was different. Even though it was also targeted at the subconscious and caused damage to the soul, what kind of existence was this silver dragon of creation? How could a nightmare injure it? You're dreaming. Afraid that one nightmare card would not be enough, Su Jingxing thought for a moment and took out another nightmare card. He unlocked it and applied it to the silver dragon of creation. It was true that this big fellow was sleeping, but the nightmare card targeted the subconscious directly. It would be triggered even in deep sleep. He was just afraid that the stimulation would not be enough. Therefore, Su Jingxing thought for a moment and took out another nightmare card. He unlocked it and applied it to the silver dragon of creation once more. The power of the three nightmare cards was unleashed together and entered the depths of the silver dragon of creation's consciousness. Su Jingxing didn't believe that this wouldn't provoke it. If it really failed, then there was nothing he could do. Just in case, Su Jingxing retreated away from the silver dragon of creation after unlocking the cards. "How is it, handsome? Will your methods work?" asked Ziluoyan Qingxia via voice transmission. "I don't know," said Su Jingxing truthfully. "I've used my methods, but I can't guarantee that they will work." "All right." Qingxia sighed. "Then we can only wait slowly." After heading to so many light clouds, they did not see a trace of life. Even if this silver dragon of creation was not the only one, it was at least one of them. With that, she waited patiently. Tuahai Quanfu and Nian Gur were also silent. 10 minutes, half an hour, 2 hours. Time flew by. Of course, the time here specially referred to time inside of the Azure Dragon world. Ever since Su Jingxing, Ziluoyan Qingxia, Tuahai Quanfu, and Nian Gur entered, they realized that the flow of time was different from the outside world. However, Su Jingxing and company were immune to the invasion of the power of time, so they didn't feel anything. Su Jingxing was also the one keeping time while waiting for the silver dragon of creation. 5 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours. A day passed, but the silver dragon of creation did not respond. 2 days passed, 3 days passed. In the blink of an eye, a week had passed. Just as Su Jingxing was about to give up on keeping time and leave, his spiritual martial arts divine consciousness suddenly sensed a change in the silver dragon of creation. An abnormal fluctuation in the soul. "It's awake." Ziluoyan Qingxia also noticed that something was wrong and exclaimed in surprise, "This fellow is finally awake. Handsome, your methods are amazing. They're actually effective." "It's not fully awake yet," Su Jingxing said calmly. "It's just triggered for now. If the stimulation isn't strong enough, it might fall asleep again. That's simple." When Ziluoyan Qingxia heard this, the light in her eyes gathered again. "I'll give it a shot and let it. Old fart Aurora. I'll kill you, eat you, kill you." Roar. A deafening roar of the soul suddenly exploded and echoed in the minds of Su Jingxing, Ziluoyan Qingxia, Nian Gur, and Tuahai Quanfu. The silver dragon of creation, which had an abnormal fluctuation, suddenly opened its huge dragon eyes and roared angrily. Its dragon roar shattered the air. Whoosh! Bam! 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 The entire light cloud space shook from the terrifying force, and the ground cracked and collapsed. Space shattered. Including the outer void, the light that filled the place flickered. Swish! 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 The sound of whistling wind filled the air. Su Jingxing, Ziluoyan Qingxia, Nian Gu'er, and Tuahai Quanfu decisively retreated into the passageway. They watched as the awakened silver dragon of creation vented through a snarl and roared as it caused destruction. The entire process lasted for more than 10 minutes. The ground where the light cloud was collapsed into small pieces of floating islands before the silver dragon of creation slowly stopped. Swoosh! The moment it stopped moving, its huge dragon eyes locked onto Su Jingxing, Ziluoyan Qingxia, Nian Gu'er, and Tuahai Quanfu. The crazy, cold, and murderous gaze froze for a moment. In the next moment, it turned dignified. Then, a loud voice sounded in the minds of Su Jingxing and company. Humans, spirit race, devil fox race, how did you come in here? Did you wake me up? That's us. As for how we came in, of course we came through the entrance. Ziluoyan Qingxia chuckled and replied, on the other hand, why are you here? From your call earlier, it seems to be related to the Lord of the Azure Dragon World. Lord of the Azure Dragon World Lord. Old Man Aurora's title. The silver dragon of creation's loud voice was filled with anger. That old sure is bold. He dared to call himself the Lord of the Azure Dragon World. Humph, spirit race child, get the old thing on you to come out. What is she planning by hiding? Swish. Swish. Nian Gu'er and Tuahai Quanfu suddenly turned to look at Ziluoyan Qingxia. Su Jingxing also slowly shifted his gaze. He thought to himself, as expected. Previously, Su Jingxing already knew that there was something wrong with Ziluoyan Qingxia. He didn't expect there to be another person hidden.